Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start drawing from the template that we created in a previous video. And remember this file, if you leave it buried where it default saves it to, it'll show up in the Start Drawing menu. So this will open up a new drawing, but it will have our title block in here, set up for A and B size paper. It has our layers set up for us, so you don't have to redo all of that. And for this one, I am going to start using layers. So I'll go ahead and we'll start with this, this green layer. I'll call that our construction layer. So I'm going to come up here and hit grid line. And for this object, the front, right, and top views are all kind of in a 10 by 10 box. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle from 0, 0 to 10, 10. And that'll give me kind of a starting spot. The next thing I'm going to do is copy this. And if I grab it by this 0, 0 origin spot, maybe I'll move one over to, I don't know, 15, 0. I'll give it a spot of 15 between, and then I'll move one up to 0, 15. Okay, so that'll just give us kind of some nice spots to link to. And the next thing I'm going to do is put some X lines in where we have features on this thing. So we have lines at, let's see, we decided, and this is just an estimate of where those were coming across. Now right now it's kind of hard to snap that across, so I'm going to put on my ortho snap, and that'll let me get a nice perpendicular line. So we'll leave that for our first one. Enter brings that up again. Let's see, our next point. Let's put one at up at 5 would be good. And maybe another one up at 5.5. So those are the heights of those two middle features. So you just click on that, enter. We have that top slanted surface, and that was up at 8.75. So this will just give us some framework to create all of those features with. Okay, along the bottom, let's go ahead and make one at, let's see, 1.750. So that'll be where some things are. And then we'll do another one over here at, let's see, that looks like it ended up happening at around 0.7. And this is, I'm getting all of these off of my sketch. There was another little guy at, let's see, 3.75. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back over to right here to be 0. And if I have my object snaps on, it shouldn't be too difficult then to just start drawing line segments that can go from one to the other. And again, I'm going to start over here on this lower left view and then work my way over. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to do a polyline where all of the line segments are connected to one another. And I'm going to start at that corner and just walk around this. Okay, now that I have those lines on, let me show you something neat for layers. So I can go ahead and turn off the grid lines so that I'm not seeing kind of the messiness of this. And I'm going to try out one more type of line. So I'm going to my hidden lines. And now I'm going to put in these hidden lines. If I come to where I want it to go, you can kind of stretch that down and get this up to just the right spot. And one more line, I'm going to come back here and close this up. Let's see, one more thing. This I'm going to need to break. So it actually wants to, I'm going to turn this into a hidden line. So I'll grab this right where it intersects. Okay, there I've got my left chunk done. Okay, for the rest of the views, I'm going to come up here and go ahead and turn those green construction lines back on. And once those are on, I'll come back to my white lines, and we'll do this with some rectangles. So I'll just start up the rectangle, and now that I have my snapping tools on, see how nice those X lines and construction lines make it to build things. Now, this little guy is a little bit tricky. So I'm coming up here. Here's my starting point is 15 and 1.75. And I'm kind of having to figure out what the coordinates are all the way over here. Let me show you another trick. I can actually move where my coordinates are, UCS, and I'm going to say, let's move it over here. So I'm measuring everything off of this new view. So 3 things to click. I have to click where the origin is, and then pull the x-axis into place, and then the y-axis into place. And now I have everything that I can get from this lower left-hand corner. Be sure you have your ortho snap on, because if your new coordinate system is off, all of the x, y points that you create with this are going to be off as well. Okay, so this little slab at the left, we're going to go ahead and maybe make it 1.75 long, and then try and snap it up here. So this is going to be a little bit tricky to get to the right spot. Using the coordinates down here, that will also help you to figure out what those are. Once I have one of these done, because it's symmetrical, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm being sure to grab it by a point, this lower right hand corner, that I can snap over here. So it's going to be a lot easier to copy and paste that than to get it in place. Now this middle one, I know it's kind of the same width, but it's going to be a different height. I'm going to go ahead and copy this over here, but this time, instead of grabbing it by the corner, I'm going to grab it by the center point, and I'm going to move the center point over here to the midpoint. And the next little bit that I'm going to do is I'll use my stretch command. Now, when it says select objects, how you select it is also selecting what point it's going to stretch around. So I'm going to click to the right-hand side of this, and then I'm actually drawing a box. So click, and then I'm going to draw a box around this top chunk, and this bottom line right here, this is the stretching point. So be careful how you select it. So there you go, click and click. Now that I have it selected, I'm going to hit enter. And for my base point, I'm going to grab this upper right-hand corner of the thing, and I'm going to pull it up to that other construction line. So I'm pulling it up and then clicking it into place. So those snap settings that we have and these construction lines are really helping us out. And we could figure out the XY coordinates for all of this, but if you use snap, copy, move, those kinds of modify tools are going to save you a lot of time, because a lot of objects have very similar symmetrical repeated shapes to them. So really get used to using these modified tools as well as the XY coordinates for all of this stuff. finishing this off. So we have another rectangle up here along the top. Again, I'm just using my snipping tools rather than trying to get XY coordinates. For the top view that's left, oh, I guess I have one more line to put in here. Every now and then turn those green lines on and off to make sure that you have drawn on here what you think you have drawn. So yeah, just do a quick check. That looks right, and then I can turn those grid lines back on. Really handy feature, those layers for AutoCAD. And the next thing we'll do is fill in this top. As you're drawing, try not to draw a bunch of line segments over the top of each other. So rather than doing an entire box and then another box over the top, if you have two lines on top of one another, that makes it extremely difficult to extrude when we get into 3 dimensions. So be very careful that you're not drawing lines, one line on top of another line, and it'll make 3D work so much easier. So for this next box, I'm not going to make another rectangle because that would draw another line on top. I'm actually going to walk around the base of this. Trying to get this next line into shape. Okay, so do you remember how to move our user coordinate system? We need to bring that back up here. So UCS, user coordinate system, and 3 things to snap. Snap the origin, the x-axis, and the y-axis. So 3 things, and it's at its new location. You can type UCS and then world to bring it back to its original shape. Okay, so now with our XY coordinates in our new spot, we can then get our line in the right area. So this little wing is 1.75 thick. So we'll go ahead, and as soon as I start that line command, my coordinates will also show me where I am. So I'm going to start at 1.75, comma 1.75, draw a line over. And this might be a good area to use maybe a mirror line. So let's go ahead and try out our mirror command. So I'm going to take this line, and we want to find the midpoint. So look for that triangle to get a midpoint. Make sure your ortho snap is on, so your mirror line is going straight down the middle. So that's going to be the easy way to get this copied across. So find the midpoint, click, erase source object. No, so if I hit enter, it'll do what's in those little triangular brackets. And the next piece that we want to do is kind of move these 2 guys to the center. And for that, let's go ahead and copy. And this time we're not going to copy a rectangle, we're just copying 2 lines. You can select multiple objects, so just keep on clicking on it till you have everything selected you want to copy. So enter. And to select the base point, now I don't have a midpoint for this line, so I'll actually have to type in the XY coordinates. So I'm over at a position of 1.75 for X, and then half of 1.75 is 0.875. You might want to have a calculator right next to you while you're going through this, because there's a lot of what's the half of this and what's so kind of keep some scratch paper in front of you. But if I can grab the midpoint down here, I can move those 2 objects up, and now I have this guy centered. And just a few more line commands here, and I will be finished up. So enter, enter, snap, snap. I'll try out the trim tool. I'm going to get rid of this one and this one. Okay, done with that, and I think that's going to be everything. So I'll finish up by turning this off. For the last little bit, let's say I want to bring this over into my layout space. Okay, so for this, what I'm going to do is add a viewport. And I'll go ahead and just select single. Now, this is actually a time when we want our snap settings turned off. And I'm going to, just so that I can keep this straight of what's my border and what's my viewport, I'm not going to put it on top of the border. I'm going to kind of tuck it inside of the border a little bit so I can select each of those. If you have two lines right on top of each other, then it's really hard to kind of move the viewport around or move the border around. So don't put them right on top of each other. So this is the paper space is where the viewport is. And the model space, I actually have a window kind of built inside the layout. So I can turn my grid off if I don't want that to print out. I can zoom extents to kind of get this centered. You see, as I have this on the white background now instead of the black background, my hidden lines aren't showing up quite as well. So what I can do is actually come back here and I can change the color on this to maybe be, I don't know, we can make it into a dark gray and see if that changes things a little bit better. So let's move it over to dark gray. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and center this and then come back to my paper space. And I can go ahead and change the name of this. So this was Chapter 2, Exercise 1. I'm just double clicking on this. And I can put in today's date and name. Okay, so there you go. We've got one of the worksheets in here with the 3 views all lined up. We've got it on a page to print. And so now don't forget to save it.